भाई एक और एक launch. Intel claims कि 13th gen is gonna outperform the Ryzen 7000 and they are right. The performance is on par and in some cases better than Ryzen. But at what cost? So again, some disclaimers before we head into the video. Number 1, the 13th gen was completely tested in-house, but the comparison tests have been taken from our database, so there can be a slight margin of error, but as accurate as it can be in an overnight testing. Secondly, we barely had time. This video mainly revolves around the high-end 3900K and 13700K, so stay tuned for an in-depth Intel versus AMD for the complete picture. तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं. Alright, the specs are on your screen. Two key changes we would like to point out. Clock speed 5.8 GHz. क्या? Although we haven't seen any IPC improvements, Intel is promising up to 15% better single-core performance due to improved memory and cache. And if you guys didn't know, the rumored 3900KS coming in January next year will be 6 freaking gigahertz out of the box. Efficiency cores have been doubled across the entire K series lineup, while they are still at a 10nm architecture, which is very impressive to say the least. And this means we now have a 14-core i5 competing against a 6-core Ryzen 5. Very excited to see how that turns out. Performance की बात करते हुए, the graphs are on your screen. As we said earlier, both the SKUs are neck and neck with their competitors. Gaming में you can see Intel has the lead, primarily due to better clock speed. No surprise there. Single core में Intel has regained the title for the fastest CPU. Multi-core में we start seeing things going here and there. In some instances, you can see why Intel have had to double their E-cores. Even with the 24 cores, the 3900K sometimes falls behind Team Red. But this doesn't change the fact that Intel has the lead here. And this brings us back to where we started. At what cost? While the 3900K manages to pull ahead, it also manages to pull a mind-bending 350 watts of power. Looking at Team Red on the other hand, it's limiting it to around 200 watts. When limiting the 3900K to 250 watts, which is also more than Ryzen by the way, it manages to lose 10 to 15% of its performance. Coming to the actual cost, these SKUs will retail at the same price as before. So not only will the CPUs themselves be cheaper than Ryzen, you can also pair it with a cheaper motherboard and RAM, but this doesn't explain the entire picture. Because if you're looking to get the same performance as Ryzen, you might end up spending as much, if not more than Team Red. Because only God knows what can pull a 350 watt CPU, and obviously the MVP. Please get in touch with us if you're looking to get a next-gen custom PC. Okay, now back to the video. So winner कौन है? Gaming and single core, Intel is the clear winner, but coming to productivity and intense workloads, Ryzen seems like a better deal, simply because you will get the scores you will see. Not so sure about Intel as of now. While this may sound cliche at this point, but the only thing holding Intel back is its process node. It's a very impressive feat seeing Intel keep up with the 5nm process node while still being on the 10nm architecture. And while this sounds And while this sounds wrong coming out of my mouth, Intel is the cheaper alternative for productivity. Ryzen is holding its ground very well. That was all for today. Stay tuned for the complete Intel versus AMD video coming out soon. Until then, like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.